Okay, got that going. Sweet. We're going to talk about the Indianapolis Colts, Baltimore. At Washington. Back to back. Okay, 14-3, 7-10. Okay, here we go. In 3, we gotta fix this. All right, in 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the T.O. Show. I'm your host, T.O. Here we go, man. We are doing another 32 teams in 32 days. We are doing the Indianapolis Colts today. Man, I'm excited to talk about this one. There's a lot of up and downs last year for the Colts. Season did not end how they wanted to. All you Colts fans felt really bad for you last year, coming off a high, and it just kind of crashed and burned over the last 6-7 weeks of the season. But if you're enjoying this content, if you're enjoying the 32 teams in 32 days, hit that like button. Let me know down in the comments, how am I doing? Subscribe if you want. But we're going to dive into the Indianapolis Colts today. I'm excited to talk about this one. As you know, we're going to talk a little bit about the offseason, kind of some of 2025, pull up the film, what did we see, and then how does that relate to 2026 here? So, talking first, honestly, there was not a lot of noise this offseason for the Indianapolis Colts. They didn't have a first-round pick this year, no coaching changes. Essentially, their first-round pick this year was Sauce Gardner that they traded with the Jets last year. But the recent acquisition of Michael Pittman is realistically the biggest kind of acquisition that they had last year. Had this offseason in terms of gaining a player. But they ended up trading with the Pittsburgh Steelers, trading away Michael Pittman from the Colts, was a big contributor to their pass game last year. Also, Alec Pierce was technically a free agent. They signed him to a long-term deal. And then also Daniel Jones, I believe they signed to the transition tag or whatever it's called. It's like the mini version of the franchise tag. Let me look up. I think he signed a long-term deal. Hang on, one more. Let me just fact check. And then, yes, and then that's what I thought. Then they signed him to a 2-year, $88 million extension that extended Daniel Jones for 2 years instead of being on a 1-year contract. So there was not a lot of huge movements in terms of it was very, very small. Not a lot of noise in the offseason. This is a team that's gone really under the radar, particularly after they went 8-2 last year. Not a lot of you're not going to hear on TV a lot of people talking about this team. Man, I really liked watching this team in 2025. I'm curious what it's going to look like in 2026. So, let's just pull up the film. What are some common themes that we saw in 2025, and how is this going to relate to 2026? One, first off, they were the best team in terms of record in the NFL. Started off 8-2, right? And realistically, one of their losses up to that 10-game point was at Pittsburgh, and realistically, they had, I believe, 3 turnovers in that game, and did not look like themselves, and realistically, still could have won the game. And it was one of those weird games where, honestly, Indianapolis was outplaying Pittsburgh the entire game, but Pittsburgh got turnovers in huge situations, created a short field, and Pittsburgh somewhat capitalized on their opportunity, but still left the door open for Indianapolis to come back late in the game. But Indianapolis was clearly the better team and outplayed them, but turnovers in that game plagued them. And then they go 8-2, and realistically, it's a huge game. They go to Kansas City, on national television, 8-2, going into Kansas City, and they have essentially the game won with about, they're up up 2 scores with about to start the fourth quarter. Frustrated Patrick, and the defense was really, really stout in that game versus the Chiefs, and they did a great job in the red zone forcing the Chiefs to kick field goals. They're also able to create a turnover and create a short field for the offense to get them in the end zone as well. But they ended up playing a little bit too conservative there down the stretch. Patrick got hot late, and they ended up sending the game to overtime. The offense really struggled in the fourth quarter into overtime. Couldn't find their rhythm and get them back into gear in the fourth quarter and in overtime. And the Chiefs end up winning that game in Arrowhead. That was a pivotal moment, I think, for the Chiefs, even though they didn't make the playoffs. And I also think it was a great learning experience for the Colts because not a lot of those players on that team got to experience what it's like to play in the big moments. It was kind of a little bit of, I think, of a wake-up call. And then, unfortunately, the week after, Daniel Jones, I believe, either the week after or the week after that, ends up tearing his Achilles in Jacksonville, and is out for the rest of the season. And that's kind of how everything just continued to after the Kansas City game. They did not win another game. Everything kind of spiraled out of control for Indianapolis, and it really halted their momentum to make a playoff push into 2020, 2025, 2026 in the 2025 season. The other thing that was really, really impressive last year was they were able to beat the crap beat the crap out of the Chargers in week 7, right? Beat them by 14. They really dog walked Miami, which is not that impressive, but they played Los Angeles week 4. Realistically, could have won that game if it wasn't for A.D. Mitchell fumbling the ball before he got in the end zone. Could have easily been a win for for Indianapolis week 4. That was another one of their losses. But also could have easily lost the Denver game week 2 on a last-second field goal, but ended up winning it out, and that was an impressive win as well. And then you kind of go week 12, and it's all L's from there. But this is a team that can last year that show that they can compete at the top level of the AFC and top of the NFL, which I think is really impressive. But let's also dive into the before the Daniel Jones injury, what this team looks like, because I think it's unfair to kind of I understand it's a 17-game season, but you lose your quarterback really late, and it makes it really, really tough in my opinion. So we talked about NFL best 8-2 going into Kansas City, end up losing that game. But at this point, going into Kansas City, they're the best team in the league, right? This is a team, best team in the league, the best offense in the NFL, right? Who would have guessed, right? The Indianapolis Colts, most points per game, most yards per game, rushing, and not the highest rushing team, yards per carry and yards per game, up to that point, right? And so nobody really saw this last year. Personally, I didn't even see this last year, right? And so how does that relate to 2026? Well, the only really pieces that they lost from the 2025 season is Michael Pittman, but they got Keenan Allen coming in. Now, again, I love Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman is a guy that not a lot of people talk about, and he's one of those grinders, man. He is in the run game, making blocks, physical wide receiver, and it's the quarterback's best friend when it comes to route running, getting zone coverage, just winning one-on-one battles when the quarterback needs it most, right? And that's huge, right? But then you also think, okay, you lost Michael Pittman, but you signed Alec Pierce back, right? And Alec Pierce is a guy that led the NFL in yards per catch last year, and had the highest yards per catch last year. Deep ball threat, guy that corners and defenses need to respect more because he can easily get behind the defense. He does a great job of making contested catches, particular 10 to 15 yards down the field, and he's a real game changer. And it was their explosive play guy last year. Also, at this point last year, Jonathan Taylor was the leading rusher in the NFL. This is a guy that's a true workhorse, 3-down back, true bell cow of a running back. You can put him in on first down, third down, second down, catch the ball to the backfield. You give him a little crease, man. He takes it 50. He's got top end speed. He's also has great vision. And so everything was rolling last year, man. Everything's rolling. Their offensive line, man. This is one of the most complete elite offensive line in the NFL. Great, they do a great job in the run game. Great job giving Daniel Jones time in the pocket to be able to make those throws to Pittman, Pierce, Warren, and the plethora of weapons that they had that guys really stepped up last year. And again, this is people didn't really talk about, and I haven't even talked about, in my opinion, the second best player on the offense, and that's Tyler Warren, because you can line him up as a quarterback, as a running back, as a tight end. You can split him out wide, and he's a matchup problem, man. He sometimes gets lost in the sauce, and he was a rookie last year and really showed how talented and his ability. And you saw that at Penn State, and was their best receiver at Penn State. But you saw it translate instantly into the NFL. Usually it's a little bit of a longer ramp period for tight ends into the NFL. And he just fit right in right away with Daniel Jones. And then on top of it, we talk about Daniel Jones, man. Had a big resurgence last year, right? He was kind of outcast in New York. And last year, he showed what he's able to do. Great job getting the ball out on time. Man, he is Vanilla Vic. He can extend the play with his legs, run for first downs, get him out of the pocket, does a great job in the pocket, gets the ball out quick when he needs to, but has great pocket movement, just enough time to get the ball out on time to the various receivers, right? And his marriage with Shane Steichen, man, it really showed last year in the up to this 8-2 point. Now, also, if we think about this, right, with the Colts at this point, 8-2. All right, Daniel Jones gets hurt, okay, after the Jacksonville game, and they lose every game, right? Still, to an extent, even when we pull up their schedule here, right? All right, so lose to Kansas City, they lose to Houston. Daniel Jones is still playing, but it's a close game, divisional game, a 20-16. Houston really gave fits to everyone last year. Get kind of blown out by Jacksonville, but Daniel Jones got hurt, and Riley Leonard had to come in. But then think about it. Okay, Riley Leonard gets hurt as well. They go to Seattle, right? Week 15. Philip Rivers is playing quarterback. Everyone's count this team out, right? This is the Super Bowl champs, right? We're talking about. They go on the road all the way in Washington, and they go play Seattle on the road, right? And they have a chance to win the game. They lose on a last-second field goal to the Seattle, 18-16. And then, you go 2 weeks later versus Jacksonville. And Philip Rivers is playing again. And they lose by a touchdown, right? Lose by 6 points. And then week 18, yes, again, I know Philip Rivers wasn't playing, but Houston needed to win and get in. And the Colts wouldn't go down easy, man. They lost that game by 8 points. And I understand the game might have felt like a little bit of a bigger gap. But, man, Indy was playing with them throughout the season. And Riley Leonard almost threw for 300 yards that game, right? And so I think it shows the leadership and of Shane Steichen. And this team didn't give up. Even after Daniel Jones got hurt, this team showed they still had fight. They thought their season wasn't over, right? They thought they were still going to have a chance to make the playoffs. And I think that just shows the character and the culture that Shane Steichen's built to not give up on the season. I think a lot of teams would have just been like, man, our season's over. But these guys were in dogfights even without Daniel Jones throughout the season, which I think really showed, in 20 at the end of 2025, even though they lost every game. And I think that's how, if I was a Colts fan, man, that's how I'd be spinning it, because you lose, your playmaker on offense, who does a great job distributing the ball. And you also lose his ability to extend plays and do these things, and you're on your essentially fourth quarterback, and you're still fighting for opportunities and chances to win, even though your quarterback is hurt. Man, that would have crippled a lot of teams, right? And then on top of that, I don't think Shane Steichen gets enough credit for his play calling. And, man, he is one of the top play callers in the NFL. You turn on the tape, man, this guy's helps the quarterback get answers. Great. He has a great job of a feel for the game in terms of when to run it, when to throw it, play action pass, teaching the quarterbacks to take what the defense has given you. And I just think he is one of the elite play callers in the NFL. And I think we've seen it ever since Jalen Hurts, or since he left the Eagles to go to the Colts. And I think you've seen it with Jalen Hurts developing, and you saw it with how good that offense was when Steichen was calling the offense for the Eagles. And so, man, if I was Indy, man, I'd want to keep this guy. This guy's one of the elite play callers, in my opinion, in the NFL. And it really showed up last year. And realistically, Shane Steichen, this is the first time Shane Steichen's really had a quarterback that I think fits his system. And Anthony Richardson, that experiment, with him getting hurt, there wasn't really a backup plan behind Anthony Richardson. He gets hurt, but even when Anthony Richardson's in the game, right, he's still a very young player, needs reps and all these different pieces, has all the physical attributes, but could never stay healthy and stay on the field. And it really, I think, hurt his ability to develop. And then they go get Daniel Jones, and man, Daniel Jones really wins that job almost instantly since he walked in the building. And I think that really showed over the course of 2025. Yeah, kind of going through my notes here about the offense, right? This is a scary team, and this is also a very, very tough and scary division to be in. I think it's one of the top divisions in the AFC, if not the NFL in general, this AFC South. Not a lot. I think having the Texans, the Jaguars, and the Colts, all their margins for error are super small. Well, if you think about it a little bit, you have Houston's defense, which is top of the NFL, right? You have the Colts offense, which was the best in the NFL up to the 10 games, pretty much up until Daniel Jones got hurt, right? And then you have Jacksonville, which is the number one rush defense last year in the NFL. And then you also have Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen, another elite play caller for Jacksonville. We'll talk about in another episode. But, I mean, it's a lot of yin and yang in terms of these three teams at the top of the division. And that also says, hey, the Tennessee Titans are no slacker as well. Oh, did I lose? I think I lost my mic. Hang on, sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. I don't know. Something happened with my mic. So I just think this team has a chance to be to repeat what it started, and I think they're coming in with that approach, and I think that's what should be the approach. They got a lot of unfinished business from last year, right? And a lot of these players are coming back from the 2025 team, and I think they got a little chip on their shoulder because there's a little sour taste in their mouth after the 2025 season. How did that end, right? But we'll talk a little bit about the question marks here, but let's talk about the defense, right? So last year, their defense, their back end, specifically their corner position, wasn't the best, and they dealt with a lot of injuries. Travarius Ward, had that collision in the pregame warm up. That was really weird, and it just it didn't. And then also at the end of the season, you had Sauce Gardner get hurt. I think they were plagued with a lot of injuries down the stretch. That they were just okay, right, on the back end, but they still have Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, which are true game wreckers. Grover Stewart's a great run player, and DeForest Buckner is a problem on the inside. The only thing I think from a defensive perspective that they struggle with is to get true edge pressure. But I do think their defense puts a little bit of pressure on their offense because they aren't super elite. I think they're just good enough. But what makes this defense just above average is I think they do a great job just being good enough where they're creating turnovers when they need it. And as an example, like versus the Broncos, Cam Bynum picks off Bo Nix late in the fourth quarter there that sets them up, which is like a 6-point swing versus Kansas City. I understand they lose that game, but Latu tips the ball up in the air off of RPO, catches it himself, almost scores, get down to the 1-yard line, sets up a short field for them, right? It's just like sometimes in the moments you just need a turnover or a key play, and with Lou Anarumo's defense, I think it's a good scheme fit with what Shane Steichen's trying to do, because if this offense can go out there and repeat what they did last year, we're not looking for this defense to be the Houston Texans or top in the league. All you're looking for is them just to limit the red zone touchdowns or getting turnovers when it matters most. And that's sometimes, as a defense, getting turnovers in some of those most important moments that really changes the momentum and changes the outcome of the game. Those are the ones that I think makes your defense if you don't have all the talent in the world to be able to win on every single down, that can be the difference in your defense between just being, a little bit below average and taking you, kind of leaps and bounds just over kind of the middle or the median there. Like I said, I thought this pass rush is non-existent, but I do think by having the back end with Sauce Gardner and Travarius Ward, hopefully them staying healthy in the offseason, they should just be able to lock and play a little bit more man on the outside and let some of their linebackers and safeties play zone and kind of match coverage the inside receivers. Yes, I understand they also lose Kenny Moore, which I think is a big player for them last year. But I still think this defense can just be good enough in terms of they just need to get in the way of the defense, be pesty, like play great red zone defense, get in the way of offenses, prevent them from scoring touchdowns, right? They have a good enough run stoppers with DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, which at times, right, if those guys aren't on the field, offenses can gash them. But they should be better in terms of their true outside wide receivers and their secondary. And Lou Anarumo is one of the better defense coordinators and knows how to get more out of his defense than what the talent is. And I think always this Colts team is always one of the most underrated teams in the NFL, and they always come out and usually outperform the expectations of what is given on the field. And that's, I think, I think that's kudos to also Chris Ballard, who's the GM there, right? I don't think they always like hit a home run in terms of like their top end blue chip players, right? They always do a fantastic job rounds 2 through 7, and then we find these hidden gem guys that just fit the system so well and are just great NFL players and just solid NFL players that they can just squeeze every ounce of those players when they come in as rookies. But that's kind of like what my thoughts are on the defense. Some of the question marks here, I know we talked a little bit of the question marks on the defense a little bit, but I think the biggest question mark of this Colts team is what does this offense look like with Daniel Jones coming off the injury, right? Is he going to be 100%? Is it going to take him some time, 3, 4, 5 games to kind of get into the season, right? Early on in the season, coming off the Achilles, big injury. It's great to see him, though, that he's fully practiced. He's out there practicing with the team, playing in the preseason. I think this is huge for the Colts and moving around because realistically, even if 80% of his legs are available, he's a problem because you're going to have to spy him because he is very elusive. He is very quick. And if you don't spy him, he will tear you apart with his legs as well. But he's not a guy that is thinking run first, right? But if you're going to give it to him, he will take it. And I think this team realistically really depends on what does Daniel Jones look like. If he looks like he did last year, I think there's a good chance Daniel Jones might win the MVP, and there's a chance that this Colts team potentially could be a top contender in the AFC, potentially winning the division. Chance at that number 1 seed. Don't get me wrong, they do have a tough schedule, but if Daniel Jones plays the way he does, they get that run game going with Jonathan Taylor, which has always been there, and Tyler Warren is a matchup problem, and that defense is bend, don't break. They don't need to be rock'em sock'em, get some turnovers when they need it, be effective in the red zone. This is a team that can compete with anybody in the NFL, in my opinion. And the thing is you're not going to see all these big name players because they don't have a lot of big name players on their team, but they have a lot of great team. They're a great team. They have a lot of guys that play well together. And I think that shows through the film in terms of how well they're coached and how hard they play. And that culture, I think, is a huge one. And I understand they come off losses to end the season, but man, they could have very easily given up. And I think that just shows the motivation and that culture that Shane Steichen has brought in to this team, and I look for them to potentially, under Shane Steichen, having their first playoff berth in a little bit that they've had, and they're going to be in that competition. And like I said in the past videos, the AFC is just so close. The margin for error is so close, right? And realistically, your season could come down to 8 to 10 plays. But what do you do in those 8 to 10 plays that you're going to be playing in those one-possession games, or those critical plays in the fourth quarter? The margin is going to be so thin. What do you do in those moments that sets you apart from everyone else? But all right, so we kind of talked about 2025, 2026 a little bit. How does that lead into? Let's dive into their schedule, right? We got 18 games on the schedule. Team that, started off hot, lost a lot of games last year. Let's go down their schedule. If this is your first time, we have 3 columns. We have a win, which is like 100% win, lean win, 75% win, 50-50, true coin flip game, lean loss, 25% chance of winning, loss. We're like, oh man, they're just going to outright lose this game. I will say, I think the Colts have a tough schedule early on. It does get slightly better as the season progresses, but they have to play the Titans, or they do have to play the Titans twice, but they have to play the Texans and the Jags twice. That's 4 really, really tough games. And they also have to play the AFC North, which, if you've watched those videos, I think all those teams have all legitimate chances to be either spoilers or playoff contenders in the AFC, which I think those margins are going to be super small. Week 1, play Baltimore at home. I think Minter, even though it's his first game, I think this is a true 50-50 game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair potentially. I know Minter's coming in with that defense, but 2 offenses, I think, that like to score points. I think, man, the margin error of both these teams are super close. I have this as a 50-50 game. Week 2 versus Kansas City at Kansas City in Arrowhead. They got some bad blood from last year in terms of losing on the road in overtime, man. They were so freaking close, right? Patrick Mahomes is coming off his ACL injury week 2. I'm torn. I don't know if this is a 50-50 game or a lean loss. I'm going to put this as a lean loss game. The only reason why, it's in the road, in Arrowhead, man, tough place to communicate for an offense. Crowd's going to be going. Only advantage that they're going to have is playing Mahomes early in the year. I'm not sure how mobile he's going to be and how many chances Andy Reid's going to give Patrick Mahomes in that season. I think from a talent perspective, man, I think the Colts are a better team. They're just a better overall team. You also have Daniel Jones coming off his Achilles. Man, it's going to be a tough one. I'm just going to mock this up as a lean loss. Very easily could see them going into Arrowhead and winning. This could be a momentum starter, man, for them going into the season. I'm really bullish on this team, and I think it's going to show through some of these picks. Then they play week 3 at home versus Houston. I have this a 50-50 game, and these division games, these AFC South matchups versus the Jags, versus the Texans are all going to be super close. I'm going to have those all as 50-50 because, man, whether they're on the road or at home for these games, those teams, the margin for error is just so small. And I think all the teams kind of complement each other in terms of what each team can do well and what the other team does well. The other team doesn't quite do as well, but to the same extent, other team might do something not quite as well. The other team does something well, and it all kind of evens itself out. Divisional game, you always know what the tendencies are of the other team. These games mean so much, and all these games are going to be super close, 50-50 for almost all of them. All right, week 4 at Washington. I think it's a lean win. From a talent perspective, I see this team just realistically, just their offensive firepower, I think, just outweighs offensive power. Jaden Daniels and the Washington offense, even though they have McLaurin and Samuel now. And I just see them going on the road. This could be another jump-starting win for the Colts. And the other thing is, I think what also makes this schedule so tough is you have to play the NFC North and also the AFC North and the NFC East, which are 2 very, very tough divisions in football. Week 5, another one. bad blood they got last year. They outplayed the Pittsburgh. One reason why I have this as a 50-50 game is, man, that Pittsburgh team, I'm not sure how this team's going to look, but they do have a lot of firepower on offense. This could be potentially a high-scoring game on both sides. I have this as a 50-50 game. Then they play Tennessee at home. I have this as a lean win. I think they should get it done. Also, I have at Minnesota. I have this as a lean win. Could have also gone 50-50 here. This team is another wild card team in terms of Minnesota. I'm not quite 100% sure what they're going to look like, but I think the Colts can get it done. I have them as a lean win. Week 8 at Jacksonville. Like I said, I have all those Houston and Jacksonville games as a 50-50. Then they play at home versus Dallas. I think these potentially going into this game could have the 2 highest scoring offenses in the NFL. And I think it's going to potentially make for a great matchup. I have this as a 50-50 game. I think whoever has the ball last probably is going to end up winning this game. But we'll see how it all plays out. Week 10, they play the Miami Dolphins. They beat the crap out of them last year. I have this as a win as well. And one thing to note is that their bye is not till week 13. So they got to play 13 straight games, which is could be a potential benefit because, man, you get rolling, everyone stays healthy, boom, you get a nice little time off, and you get your last 4 or 5 games going into the late in the season, and it jump starts you into the playoffs. So, you always hope, the bye lands at the right time. Week 11, though, at Houston, another 50-50 game. Going to be a close one. Then they play at home versus the Giants, New York Giants. I have this as a lean win. Giants are going to be a little bit better, but I think the talent on Indianapolis probably outweighs some of the Giants' talent. Then week 13 on a bye. Week 14, they go to Philadelphia. Really, really tough place to play to go in and win. I will say, coming off the bye, they should have an advantage having the extra week to prepare. But Shane Steichen, homecoming, coming back to Philly. Again, really, really hard place to play. It's kind of similar to the Kansas City game that they had last year. If they can go and win this game in Philly, man, be on the lookout for the Colts late down the season, even if their record doesn't say what it's going to say. If they go in Philly and win this game, it could potentially really jumpstart this team, I think, potentially to make a deep playoff run into 2026, because this could be one of those games. I've been on these teams before where you go on the road and you go and you're not expecting to win. I'm saying that the fans and everyone outside the building is not expecting you to win, and you go into that game and you go win that game, and man, it feels like, man, you have a sense of pride and you just got a great win. And it really gives you confidence through the entire team to say, man, if we didn't believe that we could do it before, sure as heck we can do it now, man. And that could be one of these games potentially. But I have this as a lean loss as of right now, just on paper. That's kind of how I see it being played out. Week 15 at Tennessee, I have this as a lean win. I think they should get this one done. Then they play Cincinnati at home. Man, another high-scoring affair. I think this game with Joe Burrow, we'll see if he's healthy by then. I hope so, because this would be a heck of a matchup potentially. I just have this as a lean loss, and the only reason why I have it is I think their defenses are somewhat comparable. I think the Colts' defense is a little bit better, but similar to the Dallas game, right, I just think that the talent on Cincinnati's offense slightly weighs on the Colts' offense, and I have this as a lean loss for the Colts, but very easily could see them winning this game. Then week 17, they play at Cleveland. I think it's a trap game potentially because they could be looking ahead versus Jacksonville, but I think they should get this done. I put this in the win column. They should win this game. Who knows what Cleveland's going to look like week 17. Their season could be over, but they could be playing spoiler at that point. Then week 18 versus Jacksonville at home. I have this as another 50-50 game, man. These games are all going to be so close. The Houston Colts and Jacksonville games are going to be must-watch, I think, in my opinion, if you're a fan of football. And it's going to shape how this AFC North or AFC South is going to look like in 2026. But what does that shape out to be, right? Best case, this puts the Colts at 14-3 potentially, and worst case at 7-2. Essentially, a lot of the best cases, if they can go win those 50-50 games, those one-possession games, right, that are really going to come down to the wire, and if they lose all of them, essentially, right, that puts them at 7-10. But and they're going to have a chance. I think all three of the Jacksonville, Houston, and Indy are all going to have a chance, I think, to be that number one seed. But are they going to beat each other up? That's the real question, right? Because all those games are, I think, the way we're forecasting them, are going to be super close, right? And so does anybody realistically pull away in the AFC? That's going to be the real question because of how small the gap is between the top and even the middle teams that have a chance to just, even if they got hot, what does that look like? But let me know down in the comments. Is 14-3, is it too high, man? Am I too bullish on the Colts, man? Throwing on the tape, this is one of my favorite teams to watch, and I think is very, very underrated in 2026 that nobody's talking about, even though they had success last year. Man, I could see this team having a true full season breakout instead of a 10-game breakout that they had last year, but it could crash and burn. And worst case, I have them at a 7-10. Is that too high? Again, a lot of these have very, very wide gaps of the AFC, a lot of one-possession games. We'll be curious to see how the season shapes out. And, man, I'm ready to get going for football, man. It's almost here. I'm so excited. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys sticking with us on the 32 teams, 32 days. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.